What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another Nick 4K video. Today we're checking out a video from Classic Halo Commentary, and the video is titled Millennials Have Ruined Kids' Hobbies. Let's check it out.
I think this video is going to be a controversial one, and that is that millennials have ruined kids' hobbies and teenagers' hobbies as a whole because they just refuse to grow up. And before I get into the 4 major ways they are doing this, I just want to preface, if you still like things from your childhood and like to partake in them, that is not what I'm talking about. I don't think there's anything wrong with, the people saying, oh, you got to grow up and stop liking things you used to like. I think that's cringe. I think if you're someone who's, a millennial that still likes playing video games or reading comic books or collecting Pokemon cards or doing whatever you want to do with your free time, as long as you're not hurting anybody, that's completely fine. But for me, where it crosses the line is when these millennials, and again, I am a millennial as well, forget that these are supposed to be for kids. And when they put themselves in front of the children and they ruin the hobby for the kids that are growing up, because all of us remember the magical times we had with Pokemon.
Okay, so I heard he was going to say Pokemon. That's the one thing that popped in my brain. I see a lot of videos online. I'm not in the Pokemon sphere. In fact, I didn't know Pokemon was still being made until like 3 years ago, when I found out there's like 7 generations of Pokemon now. And I thought it ended like with Ruby and Sapphire, but there's so much more. But that's how out of the whole Pokemon sphere I am. But I've been seeing a lot of videos online of people like going into stores and buying all the Pokemon cards and then walking past kids, and the kids are so sad because, like, of course they're kids. They're probably using their Christmas money, and here are these scalpers going in buying these Pokemon cards and flipping them for like what, 2, 3, 4 times the amount of money. Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's definitely ruining the entire experience. And if I was a Pokemon fan, I probably wouldn't be after that, right? Like, that's just one of those things where like they got to figure something out. I don't know how they're going to do it, but that's lame.
Pokemon Mania, all the new video game consoles coming out, pick your card game, going to Disney World, all this stuff. And some adults did partake in these things, but they always put us first. So that's big. My real big problem is when these adults, the millennials, are putting themselves in front of the kids and basically just making these hobbies unaccessible or awful for kids to partake in. So the first thing I'm going to discuss is scalpers. Scalpers are, without a doubt, the biggest scourge on children's hobbies I have ever seen.
Especially
We've all
since
seen the memes.
Especially since COVID, like 2020, with like graphics cards, game consoles, like he said, and now Pokemon cards, and I'm sure other cards. Maybe like another big thing when I was a kid was Yu-Gi-Oh! They're probably still big in some level. That's probably getting hit by scalpers. Yeah, it's crazy.
Of the people fighting and fist fighting over Pokemon cards at midnight launches, it's gotten so bad that there's tons of stores that don't even sell Pokemon card products.
It's so pathetic
in their store because of the mayhem it causes. And if you watch these videos, it's never the kids that are causing mayhem. It's always the millennials that are doing this. They're trying to buy too many, packs or boxes of the cards, so the store owner's trying to say no, or the people behind them are getting pissed off because they can't buy 55 boxes. It's, when you fist fight or argue, and most of these people doing this have no interest at all in Pokemon cards or card games in general. They're just doing this to try to make a quick buck and sell these boxes for ridiculous prices to the parents that are just trying to make their kids happy.
And I get it. I understand where you're coming from, especially if you need the money. It's a quick, easy buck to make that money. But while doing that, what you're doing is you're effectively ruining the entire experience for somebody else. So while I get it, if I was in that spot too, I might consider doing the same thing. But it doesn't mean it's not like low-key diabolical. It's just so rude and just like not the right thing to do. So I don't know. It's one of those things where I get it, but it is wrong.
I think that's horrible. And it goes just beyond the Pokemon cards. People scalp toys. Another huge one is video games. Like, people will go out and buy like fucking 1 million Nintendo Switch 2s or PlayStation 5s.
I also want to point out that the scalping part of this video is not just millennials. Everyone does this. Gen Zers do this. Xers. I'm sure there's some boomers out there doing that. Scalping has been a thing for a long time. It's only really just become big when it comes to like other things that are meant for kids, because I know, rich parents will buy whatever their little kids want, and if they can't get them in the store, they'll pay it 3 to 4 times. Some won't, but some will, and so it is lucrative. But it's not just millennials. I'm sure he'll get into more things that millennials are ruining as the video goes on, but this isn't just us. So just want to point that out.
And then load them up on eBay for, quadruple the price. And the parents that are just trying to get, these products for the kids, or just kids that can't get online at midnight to pre-order these things, are just left out in the dust. And again, these scalpers don't understand. These are meant for children, not us, and not everything has to be made for a profit. And the latest thing I've been seeing are these Labubu plushies.
Oh, God.
I work in a school, and obviously I have, a little bit of a pulse on what the kids are into. These things basically are like the new Beanie Babies of the 90s. That's the easiest way to describe this. And so many adults are buying these things up and scalping them for ridiculous prices. And kids at my school have told me, like, I want one, but I can't find one. I don't know where they are. And, it's just a hot commodity if you have one. But these scalpers have ruined everything. Video games, toys, plushies, you name it, any kind of electronic product, you name it. Scalpers, of course, will be there day one to buy it. And the people that are actually meant to enjoy these products are left out in the cold because some of the parents can't keep up with these things. Next, we're going to discuss the toys and the products themselves, because all of these products are starting to realize.
I did not realize how big Labubus are until I saw them on South Park, and I was like, wow, these things must actually be massive. I don't get it.
And these companies are starting to realize that if they're not scalping it, the millennials are still sitting here buying these products for themselves at an alarming rate. And if they are targeted towards kids and not them, a lot of the time you see on forums and people complaining about how they're not cool, it's not what they're looking for. But what they don't understand is it's what the kids are looking for. But obviously the kids don't have the same amount of money that millennials do and, grown adults have. So these companies have realized, like Lego is a perfect example. We're not going to target children anymore. Our target audience is grown adults. And the prices of Legos have skyrocketed.
Oh, true.
The sets may as well just be models. There's not like fun sets to play with anymore. And that's because millennials have been buying it, and Lego as a company has shifted how they make their products to meet the demands of their biggest customers. That's no longer kids anymore. Because, kids might want Legos, but they're so goddamn expensive now. And not to mention, they're not even made towards them anymore. I remember when I was a kid, the Lego sets were play sets that you actually played with. Built, unbuilt, crashed. But now, like I said, these things are just glorified models that you put together and may as well just fucking glue it in place. And I understand.
That is true. I haven't really noticed that. I know like Legos have definitely become more adopted by adults as us adults grew up from being kids. But I didn't realize how big it was either until like you're like flipping through Amazon and you see and there's like a $250 Lego set for Pirates of the Caribbean and it's like sold out. It's crazy. It's one of those other things that I don't really get. I'm sure there's some people out there maybe even watching this video who love Legos and the models and stuff like that, but that's just, I don't get that.
Understand if you just, are an adult and want to keep partaking in these hobbies, that is not a problem, like I said in the beginning. A great example of this is Pokemon cards and just card games in general. I don't know a ton of adults that played, cards back in the day, but we collected Pokemon cards and played them. But the biggest card game I played growing up that we took the most serious was Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yes.
And I did know a few grown adults that played Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Okay, so I'll explain this to you guys. So this is how it was back in the day. Let's say circa 2005. So before Yu-Gi-Oh kind of popped off, everyone pretty much collected Pokemon cards. And Pokemon cards, you didn't really know how to play the game. You didn't know how to actually verse your friends. But you did know what was rare. You did know what you wanted to trade with your friends on the schoolyard. That was kind of what Pokemon was more for. It was actually a game you could actually play against each other on, but no one knew how to play, so we would just collect it more. It was more of a collecting card game. Then Yu-Gi-Oh comes along and it gets more popular. It's probably like 2002 to 2003, 4, 5, somewhere around then. But for Yu-Gi-Oh, it wasn't really about collecting. It was about like getting the cards and then playing against your friends. So it was two different ways of collecting. If you were more of a collector and you didn't like to actually verse other people, you had Pokemon cards. If you wanted to verse other people, you would do Yu-Gi-Oh. And so that was kind of like the difference in the two card sets, I guess you could say. Now there was a third card set, but that was considered for like the older kids slash adults, and that was the Magic cards. Magic was for adults or teenagers, and then you would have Yu-Gi-Oh, which was more for like older kids slash preteens, and then you would have Pokemon, which is for, you know, kids and down to toddlers. That was kind of like the three different generations of playing cards, I guess you could say. Pokemon, then you went to Yu-Gi-Oh, then you went to Magic, and then maybe you stayed with Magic, or you went to like baseball cards or something like that. But ultimately what it came down to is they all served their different purpose as you grew older. But as time has gone on, I guess they do have some type of staying power, especially when it comes to Pokemon, because while Pokemon is usually for younger kids, and then you gradually go into Yu-Gi-Oh, and then you go into Magic, and you get more serious about your card playing and stuff like that, people didn't want to leave the Pokemon phase. So now it's still meant for 4 to 8 year olds, but we have people in their 30s taking all those cards, so the 4 to 8 year olds can't get their cards. It's pretty crazy.
And played it with their kids, you know, collected the cards. And I thought that was pretty cool that they played and, you know, they had that bond with their son or daughter, whoever they were playing with. But the biggest difference was that they put the kids first. They were doing it not only because they enjoyed it, but because they were bonding with their kid. And not to mention, every single one of these adults that I knew would never in a million years, if it was not just their own kid, like if they were at the card shop with us that we had, if there was one pack of the new set out, they wouldn't buy it for themselves. They would always let any of the kids have it first. They didn't come at it from a selfish angle, because they knew even though they were playing it and enjoying it, the kids were the target audience, and they are the ones that are trying to make memories to look back on and enjoy, and they didn't want to interfere with that. They just wanted to highlight it and make it better. Say, hey, you know, I'm enjoying this with my son. We're having fun. And, you know, it's funny. Everyone laughs when an adult, you know, is playing the kids' game or the game with the teenager and stuff like that. It makes the experience better. So they just want to make the experience better, not take away from the experience that the kids are having. Mm-hmm. Again, the biggest example of this right now going on are the Labubus, this craze of these things, where kids want them, but adults, not even if they're scalping them, they want to buy the whole lot up to throw on their book bags, their purses, or whatever it is, and they just basically say, you know, we don't give a shit about the kids. Who fucking cares? And back in the day...
Oh, wow. So, okay, so what you're saying... So Pokemon cards, I can get it, because millennials grew up with Pokemon cards, and to be an adult now is hard. Way harder than I would say a lot of other generations had to experience. I mean, obviously, far back it was harder, like when you talk from a technology standpoint and all the extra advancements we have. But the fact that life is so hard, money is like impossible to get, and you're just constantly just barely getting by, the idea of picking up a Pokemon card pack every so often to kind of just be like, my childhood was so easy, I loved it. I completely understand that. I think the majority of millennials, probably like 90% of us, would understand that aspect. The idea that we grew up in like the best time, and I know that sounds sad because we also grew up during like 9/11 and stuff like that, but my point is that we grew up in this like time of there's a great sadness, but magic as well. So many good things were happening for us at that time that we really just got screwed over. And of course Gen Z got really worse, and Gen Alpha is going to get it really, really worse. So it's one of those things where wanting to get that little piece of childhood magic, I understand that completely. So for Pokemon, I understand the idea of buying a few packs to recapture that magic. Obviously, if you're a scalper, you're a scumbag. But if you're actually just buying it for yourself, that's great. If you're buying it for your kids, awesome. That's what it's meant to be. But Labubus, I just don't get. Like, I don't understand why an adult would buy a Labubu. I mean, it's one thing to buy a Labubu to scalp it, I guess, but to buy a Labubu and actually use it I don't know if that's like one of those things where it's like it's a mental illness point of view because it's just a stuffed animal, and it doesn't make sense. And maybe it's one of those things where I'm too logical. I don't want to toot my own horn, but maybe I'm just too logical. Maybe I have too much reason. Maybe that's why I don't understand it. It's not meant for me. It's meant for people who are stuck in the past. I would love to go back to the past. The past was so easy. Remember the past, guys? The past is pretty nice. But I'm able to understand that the past is the past, and I still need to be moving forward. I still need to be working forward. But I'm guessing for a lot of people, maybe that's what these Labubus stand for. Maybe Labubus and Pokemon cards and other things like that, like, you know, Disney adults, they call them. Maybe that's one of those things where it harkens back to a simpler time. And so mentally, they want to reach that simpler time. But the issue is, no matter how much you invest into that stuff, no matter how much time, money, regardless of what it is, that time's gone. You are reaching for a time and a place that no longer exists. And the more you reach for it, the further away it's going to get. That is just the way it is. Like I said, I completely understand the nostalgia trip, the wanting to feel a little bit of your childhood again. I get it. But I do think there's some level of mental illness that has to be, I don't know, researched or explained onto why people are like this. Like I said, if you're scalping, that means you're a scumbag. We get it. But if you're really that deep and you're still collecting Pokemon cards as an adult to the point where, like, if you have expendable income and you're not like stealing from kids or like going and buying 50,000 packs for yourself, like, it's okay. Like, I get it. Like, if you want to enjoy your own thing, I like the game still. I've been a gamer my entire life. You know, I have the expendable income to be able to buy the next game and play it. And if I want to buy like a certain skin or a certain gun pack, I don't go crazy. I don't buy everything, but I'll buy like my certain skin that I like. I'll buy a certain gun that I like, and boom, I'm good to go. But I realize I'm investing that money for me to have a good time. But that's just it. Me to have a good time. I'm going to be entertained. I'm going to keep on moving on because that's what adults do. But when it comes down to it, there has to be some type of mental health issue where you would actually spend your life savings on Pokemon cards for yourself. Or spend your life savings on Labubus. Sorry for that little tangent. It just, it's interesting, but it also makes me upset for the future because that's unfortunate.
Kid, when, you know, adults partake in these hobbies, it was always putting the kids first but still having fun. I think the only difference is Beanie Babies. At a certain point in that craze, all the adults just said this is a fucking investment, so we're gonna go buck wild. But I don't know, it just seems that
that was a weird time too. I don't think anyone can really explain that.
Millennials compared to the adults when we were growing up, I think that might be Gen X people, is that they have just not grown up and they are selfishly clinging on to all of these hobbies and basically demanding that these companies placate to what they want instead of what the kids want. And I think that's wrong. Like for me, I still play video games, and this is a perfect example. I usually just buy all my video games digitally now, and I just order, like, the Nintendo Switch 2 is the latest game console. I bought that. I just ordered it online at Walmart. But if I was in Walmart and there was one Nintendo Switch 2 left, and there was a kid with his mom or dad behind me, and they were also trying to buy a Switch 2, I would let that child get the Switch 2. I wouldn't selfishly buy it.
Yeah,
but I think I'm in the minority of millennials. They would be the ones to buy it up and just basically tell that kid, you know, fuck off.
No, I disagree with that. I just think it's what it is. It's the vocal minority that makes it seem like that. We see a lot of videos of millennials doing that. The majority of my friends would never do that, and they're all millennials. I completely understand where he's coming from, but I would say like 99% of people who would do the exact same thing you just did. but there's still that 1%, and they're the ones you see all over internet. And that's the way it is. That 1% will always ruin things for the 99%. That's a lot of different things, not just scalping, but that's for a different video. Let's continue.
I'm getting this thing. So that's what I mean by it, is they are selfishly partaking in the hobby, not putting the kids first, and they're making these companies placate to what they want from it, which is not necessarily what the kids want, which is why action figures and toys and things like that and comic books and even video games are not as popular to the kids anymore. Now, obviously, there are some games that are still crazy popular with kids. Fortnite, Roblox, all that stuff. So I'm not saying that, things like that are, broad sweep, that there's nothing for kids anymore. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that if a video game company or, tries to make their game targeted towards kids, there'll always be some kind of grown man baby bitching and moaning about, oh, this is not what I want. When you should realize that this is not made for you. If you like it, that's cool, but this is made for them. So the next obvious talking point, my third of 4, is Disney adults. Obviously, I had to bring this up. And if you are an adult that likes to go to theme parks, whether it be Disney or Universal, that is completely fine. I am not talking or discussing the people that go a few times and just have fun. I am talking about the people that just fucking live there, make it their entire life, and just make the park a living hell for families to try to go to and enjoy. So, you go there all the time, crowding the parks for the kids. You buy up all the merchandise that none of the kids can have. And because of this, there's been tons and tons of debate about this in the Disney community. I looked it up because, I noticed it as well. That Disney, their target demographic is no longer children anymore and families. Their target demographic are these millennial Disney adults that have no kids or anything, that just live
money.
in Disney World. So Disney, the theme park, that's supposed to be the family place, it's supposed to be the trip that, you go on. It's like a rite of passage of your childhood to go to Disney World. Everyone wants that dream Disney vacation, and, they'll remember it forever. Disney basically said, yeah, we don't give a fuck about that anymore. We are targeting Disney adult millennials who live and breathe this park and just make it a living hell for kids. So all the merchandise is geared towards them. All the changes to the park are geared towards them. Movies are geared towards them. Nostalgia bait movies all the time. And if Disney tries to make anything new, the millennials will whine and moan about how this movie sucks. It's not as good as, Beauty and the Beast and all this stuff. I remember when Frozen came out and people were saying that this is amazing. And it took a while for the millennials to latch onto it. But at first they were, offended. Like, this is not better than my Disney movies that I grew up with.
I don't remember.
And then they realized it's about equal footing, and now they all love it. But this is exactly what I'm discussing.
I haven't, just to make a point on that, I hadn't seen Frozen until like 2016, so I don't remember any of the extra backlash, but I remember hearing really good things about it from the beginning, so I wasn't really in that sphere of caring at the time, so I'm sure there were people complaining about it, but I kind of remember people saying it was amazing, and like that one song, Let It Go, being like massive for months on the charts, so I don't know.
They want everything made directly for them and not for the kids. And when you overindulge in these things that are supposed to be meant for kids, even if it's harmless, and I'm not saying going to Disney World as an adult is a bad thing, but when you do it to the extent that you do, and you whine when things are targeted towards kids and complain that they're not targeted towards you, you change the way Disney makes their products, and they're making it worse for children to make it better for you, and I think that's fucking terrible. And then the final...
so I kind of agree with what he says. Obviously, a lot of Disney's products, especially like the last 5 years, I don't think it's necessarily that they're aiming for adults. I think they're just aiming for more of like the left when it comes to like political leanings. And a lot of the left's ideals just are not really for everybody. There's like the far left, which that really goes towards, but for like everyone, it's just harder to really capture that feeling when you're trying to like also say a political message. And we see that a lot with like Disney movies in general, where it's like, why don't you focus on making a good story first? And if there's an underlying message under that, that's fine. But you can't be hitting people over the head with a message and then try to also tell a story at the same time. It doesn't work that way. So the best way to craft a good, especially when it comes to movies, to craft a good story is to focus on the narrative. It's like that argument of like, don't make a gay character, make a good character who also happens to be gay. You know, that's just kind of my perspective on it. Obviously, I could be completely wrong, but based off of how people have been talking about Disney for the last few years, there's an issue, and they're starting to course correct now, but obviously there was some type of problem, and it exists, you know. So that's all I'm going to say about that. We'll keep on going.
Talking point, and that is the millennial creators that are now in charge of making everything for kids, whether that be video games, movies, decisions in the theme parks, you name it. Most of the business world, the predominant figures are millennials, the ones that are actually doing the work, the writing, the animating, everything. We are the middle generation now. You know, Gen Z is the young adults. Gen X are getting older now, and they're like the old head, the old guards, and Gen Alpha and whatever the hell the one after that is are the kids now. We're the middle. We're in the peak of our adulthood, smack dab in the middle, and we are making all of these things. And I can tell you that we are making awful products. When I say that Disney is now targeting millennials, that is because Disney is being run and, you know, having things created for by millennials.
To clarify, he's correct. Being run by left millennials. Just wanted to state that.
And they're just making shit for them and not for the kids. When you see the new TV shows that are coming out, it's just this awful shows, like just horrible writing where they try to push real world ideals. And again, I'm not getting into politics or anything like that. I would never do that on this channel because I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
It's a touchy subject. You don't want to go super deep into it, but it's one of those things where it's obvious, and if you're talking about it, you have to at least acknowledge it, even if you don't deep dive. Gotta acknowledge it. It's just a thing.
But regardless of what side of the aisle you sit on, none of that should be involved in children's shows and children's media or comic books and things like that. But, you know, it's constantly being shoved in there, and it just makes stuff that isn't fun for kids to watch because kids don't want to know about politics or hear about real life shit. Even if it's not politics, they don't want to hear about adult stuff. When I was watching Pokemon as a kid or Jackie Chan Adventures, you know, there was nothing like that in there. And because of this, kids are now moving more towards just watching social media. They're watching TikTok, they're watching YouTube, they're doing all that stuff. And if they do want to watch TV shows, they just watch anime now. That's basically all they watch. All the kids are obsessed. Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, you name it. That's their new predominant shows. And, you know, if you ask them, hey, are you watching Spider-Man or reading the Spider-Man comic book? All of them are like, no, I'm good. I'm reading this manga. I'm reading Death Note right now or something like that. And overall, we just have cringy millennials writing and creating horrible things and not having a singular clue of what they're doing. And it's destroying things for kids. So overall, just to wrap this up, millennials are having a hard time, in my opinion, growing up. I don't know what it is about us compared to the other generations. I know we are very cringe. Absolutely cringe. And I can admit that. As a millennial myself, I'm a very young millennial. I was, on the last couple of years of the cutoff. I was born in 1991. So, 34 years old. But at the same time, we just have to understand, like I said in the beginning of the video, there is nothing wrong with still enjoying things you liked when you were a kid. I think the generations before us that pretended to just be, you have to snap your finger and be a fucking full adult, gone of all the things you enjoyed as a kid.
I agree.
You have to leave it all behind. No. If you liked Pokemon as a kid and were part of the Pokemon mania, that's completely fine to still like Pokemon. It's completely fine to still play video games, or to skateboard, or, you know, play Yu-Gi-Oh cards, or, you know, like Labubu's if you want to do that. Or go to Disney World.
I think that's weird.
But the thing that we are not doing, that some of the adults that partook in that hobby back in the day, is we have to realize that while we can still enjoy these things, that we should put the kids first. Have them have the great experiences that we had. Understand that we should be creating things with them in mind and not us. Our childhood and our teenage years are over. We're adults. We can still enjoy this, and that's why I think Nintendo, for video games, is killing it. Because they're one of the few companies that are still targeting kids. And you know, I cannot wait to play the next Mario game that comes out. And I can't wait to see the new Mario Galaxy movie that just got announced today. That's coming out early next year. But that movie, while I enjoyed it, is still geared predominantly towards kids, and that's the way it should be. We can still like this stuff, we can still enjoy it, we can still have fun and engage with it, but just know that we should put the kids first, put our feelings aside, and let them have a great childhood. Don't be selfish. Don't buy the last pack of Pokemon cards of the kids behind you. Don't buy the last Switch 2 of the kids behind you. Let them make memories so when they're our age, they look back and say, hey, I had a great childhood, and not, hey, I wanted to collect Pokemon cards, but I could never find a pack because all the adults bought them all up.
Okay, so that was a really good video. I didn't agree with everything he had to say, but I think this video, while it is more focused towards the points he made, it's also part of a bigger argument for a lot of reasons when it comes to just like millennials in general. Past generations had to grow up faster, so millennials didn't necessarily have to. And so I always say that 30 is the new 18 for a lot of people. And the reason for that is because in the past you'd have to, you know, the idea was you left home at 18. Well, now that it's too expensive to do that, people can't. People have to stay till they're 30. Not all the time, but a lot of people had to stay till they're 30. And especially when it comes to Gen Z, they're going to have to stay till they're 30. And Gen A, I don't even know. But it's one of those things where like millennials have to start preparing for the future. And a lot of millennials are just like, it's too expensive, it's impossible, I'm just not going to have kids. And I have friends who are already like that. And, you know, they're 30 and they have no plans on having kids. I have 2 kids, and I'll tell you what, it's expensive and it's a lot. It's awesome, but I completely understand the idea of my friends seeing us, me and my wife, with our kids, and being like, nope, don't want any of that. And so in the past, where adults might just like stop collecting or stop doing their thing at like 18 and, you know, try to like be like, all right, I'm gonna just be an adult now, I'm gonna put all my things I like aside, and that's just the way it is, I'm gonna live my life miserable, which a lot of Gen Xers did, by the way, and boomers before them. But of course, in the past, they could afford being, you know, a minimum wage worker for their entire lives and still affording what they want to afford. Now you cannot do that. So it's one of those things where different situation, different time. And so if people can't compete, if people cannot keep up, then they will just bail out. You know, that's the idea. If you're playing a game and every move you pick is negative towards you, do you keep playing that game or do you flip the board? You flip the board. Like, I don't blame people for doing that. So they flip the board and they just quit. They quit the game. And so now they're just going to focus on themselves and focus on the things they like and things that make them feel good, which was a lot of things in their past before life got really hard. So I don't blame people. Now, what I'm tapping into is a much deeper subject, maybe for a future video if you guys actually want to hear me talk about it. But usually people only want to hear me talk about movies, video games, and Blu-rays, so I'll stick to those genres for now. But yeah, how did you feel about this video? Did you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that millennials are a problem? Or do you think it's society that made them the problem, and because of that, they became a bigger problem? That's what I think. Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn notifications for more videos. If you want to check out any more of my videos, they'll be right here on your screen. Go ahead and click those links. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.